Hey guys, Michael and DanO back again for a Bucks Island on tour. I do apologize. We've been a little behind, but that's life with the chaos of life on the road and the busyness of the end of the season. But nonetheless, DanO's still been out there and gotten us some good scoops. And so, where are we picking up this week? And getting the inside scoop, Dan.
Well, this week we're actually in Aiken, Mississippi, or Minnesota. Sorry, not Mississippi. I'd be too close to home then. Aiken, Minnesota. We're at the final BPT event, the Bass Pro Tour here at Mille Lacs Lake. But the clips that we're going to discuss are the last two Bassmaster Elite Series of the season. We caught up with Austin Felix at Lake Oahe. He was the winner there. That was a very interesting tournament. And then we caught up with Brian Schmidt, who was the unsuspecting winner at the final event at Crosse in Wisconsin. And we caught up with him as well. A couple of really unique, interesting events, some tension at the last event. There's a lot of classic qualifications, requalifications for the Elite Series for the following year. And then, of course, the Bassmaster Angler of the Year and Rookie of the Year titles, and we can kind of go over some of that stuff too.
All right. And I will we'll take a quick second to point out that the schedule is out officially for next year for Bassmasters and for us locally. We got Lake is in the mix. Is that right?
It is. Yep. And that'll lead us to when we're going to schedule Fish Fest, which looks like it's going to be May 6th of next year. As a little scoop to everybody that watches these Bucks Island on tour, we'll start booking those guys, our appearances and the vendors and that kind of stuff here real soon.
Well, that it's always great to have them here. Maybe we can get them back to Neely before too long. So tell me what's going on. Let's go back to Oahe and what was kind of the scoop going on there. I know that's not exactly a Coosa River type of body of water, but
no, it's a big body of water. It stretches all the way from Pierre, South Dakota, which is the state capital, up into North Dakota. The anglers were not allowed to go above the North Dakota border. They had to stay in South Dakota. But it still was well over 130 miles, 140 miles of fishery. Big water lake, desert lake, a lot of winds. It's a plains lake. There's a lot of grass and stuff, but there's not a lot of submergent grass, but I'm talking grasses, rolling hills and things like that, plateaus. It's the plains, it's the prairie. And it made for a very interesting tournament. A lot of equipment got broken. The biggest tip I can give you from that is that if you guys are going to fish big water lakes, even Guntersville and stuff, when it gets rough, tighten all your bolts before you go fishing. We saw graphs get ripped off. We saw transoms get cracked. We saw motor bolts get sheared. There was an awful lot of stuff, especially on day two. But these guys are professionals. They know what they're doing. They know how to handle their boats. Just something that happens sometimes in big time professional fishing. But if you're going to fish big waters like Guntersville or some of those where the weather does make the lake really rough, tighten all your bolts before you go fishing. That's the big takeaway. Interesting tournament. There was a lot of Carolina rigging going on, which, that's a South Carolina deal that was started by Jack Chancellor. But they were throwing creature baits and stuff like that on a Carolina rig for smallmouth on isolated rock piles, is where a lot of that stuff came. Interesting tournament. Austin Felix, a Minnesota guy, won it. It's his first Elite Series win. And we caught up with him right afterwards.
All right. Well, let's roll that clip and see what he had to say.
All right, Austin, first Elite Series championship here.
Did you think you had a chance when you came here?
I mean, I had this tournament circled all year. I'd never been here except for practice, but I just knew how pre-practice, how incredible the lake was, and I thought it was going to be a fun event. One way or another, I thought I could do well. After the first day, I really felt like I stubbed my toe enough that I put myself out of winning. But I was fortunate enough to put that giant bag on the scale day 2, and everything just went perfect that day, and fish just seemed to come to me. So it kind of got me back in it, got that momentum going, and I was able to ride it all the way to championship.
What was the difference between day 1 and day 2?
Honestly, it was boat number. Like, I couldn't really get on most of the stuff I wanted to day 1. It was one of those things, I was a late boat number, so I kept running by things that had people on it thinking I'd find something to myself, and I practically made it all the way to the bridge before I found anything to myself, and everything kind of got mixed up then. Day 2, I was able to get on what I wanted and really put the hammer to them, and obviously day 3 and 4 we had smaller fields, so you were able to move around and catch fish if you needed to.
So the wind helped you on day, or is it just the boat draw and you got your spots?
I mean, the wind didn't help me catch them. I think it helped the fact that I was able to fish a hole that it wasn't completely blown out, and a lot of people weren't able to do that. It hindered a lot of people, which kind of helped me because I didn't hinder me at the time. But day 1 obviously was very difficult. That's why I only weighed 14 pounds.
What was your pattern this week?
I was fishing main lake points. You were looking for the steeper edges that broke off onto the main channel. It would break off into like 80, 90 feet. And you wanted to find an area where it sloped gradually and then broke off somewhere between 25 and 35 feet. A lot of those points would slope out to 40 or 50, and that was too deep. But if you get it to break right there, you could usually find fish. They'd swim off the break and they'd come up onto it to feed. And I was just using my active target, throwing a drop shot and a Ned rig at them. And then there were a couple areas that I knew had actual schools on them. If they'd set up and wouldn't commit to the active target fish, I would back off and throw a Carolina rig with a speed craw.
So were they fed best when they were on the point or when they were suspended?
No, they were pretty much on the bottom.
Okay.
For the most part.
Is that what you found most of the week? Mm-hmm. Was that they were there? Or did you find some suspended fish that kind of
they'd swim up when they see the boat, okay. So you'd catch some of them like on the way down and whatnot, but when you sat off of them, they were pretty much all on the bottom.
So now you built a very successful career at FLW, and now here you are, an Elite Series champion. What's that feel like?
It feels incredible. It feels like I'm driving 6.5 hours home. I was worried about the drive, but I'm going to be invigorated the whole way. I'll probably have to do phone calls and text messages and whatnot, but it's incredible. I didn't know if it would happen. I hoped it would. I thought I'd have a chance here and there if I could capitalize on it. I knew this was going to be one of them. Unfortunately, I was able to close the deal.
So what does it feel like to have this much family near you? You're close enough at home to be able to have your mom and dad, and
yeah,
it was great.
This is by far one of the closest events that I've ever fished on the Elite Series. This and then our next one, Crosse, will be the closest. Other than that, it's always 12-hour drives for me every tournament plus. So to be here, to succeed, and to have my family have the ability to jump in the vehicle and get here in time to see it live was really special.
Well, congratulations on a great week, man.
Thanks.
So you got a good few minutes with him, and we kind of went through as you know, kind of has been the theme with a lot of these recent, you know, the northern swing. You know, what's besides the big water, you know, issue and you know, boat security and all that kind of stuff that you were just talking about. Any other takeaways for those of us in our little region?
Forward-facing sonar is the story. It just, especially on lakes where fish suspend, it's just a tool that has to be there. I haven't done it on my boat ever, but it'll probably be on the one that's about to get done. It's just too valuable a tool. And I love to fish for suspended fish. I always did out in California. That was, you know, spotted bass. They suspend over water, deep water, over points. I guess I just kind of didn't think I needed it, but I definitely see it now. I'd say that's the big deal, and learning how to use it is something that makes a difference. But that was very key to that tournament in a lot of ways.
So shifting gears, we're coming a little bit back towards home. If anybody that's watching's kind of like me, I got to look up on a map where exactly South Dakota and North Dakota are, because I know they're a long way away. But what was the next tournament after that? You know, a little bit bringing you back home. Talk to me about that one.
Well, La Crosse, Wisconsin, Mississippi River, pools 7, 8, and 9. 7 being the top one, 8 being the one in the middle where they launched out of, 9 being the one below. They could lock through to both of those other pools if they wanted to. But that's a shallow water grass fishery. Frogs played a big deal in it. We saw some swim baits playing a little bit of a role. There was some flipping bites going on. There was a little front that came through on the day off that muddied one creek in particular that dumped about 5 miles worth of mud into the main current. And it was one creek. And so a lot of guys that had been planning on that one stretch of the river below it, they got blown out. Matt Herron, we didn't get him on camera, but we talked to him. He found one little piece on this flat that was a rock, a giant boulder that the mud could not settle behind. And he said just about every fish in that area on that flat came into that clean water. And on the first day of the tournament, he put 16 something. He was in second place or third place, wherever he was. He was right up there. Second place, in fact. He caught about 50 fish in that one strip of clean water. But he just said, I knew that if I left it, someone else would look at it and figure it out and come fish it. So he says, I just sat there and caught everything I could out of it. And then just, kept himself working into a top 25 finish. Gave himself a nice check, a little momentum going into next year. But the big stories were the Rookie of the Year, Jay Shakurat. We caught up with him to talk about his Angler of the Year or his Rookie of the Year status and what that meant to him. Brandon Polinick. I didn't interview Brandon for the On Tour because I kind of figured it would be fun to get him on a direct recorded one, the two of us.
Yeah.
So we'll try to do that later, but that had a lot of tension. What he needed to do coming in was finish in 37th place or above after not making the cut at Oahe, the first cut he didn't make. But he needed to finish actually 38th and above. If he finished 38th and above in the tournament, then his nearest competitors couldn't. And on day 2, with a half an hour left to fish, Brandon did not have a limit. He struggled all day, but showed a ton of guts and caught his 5th keeper that put him into 37th place after day 2. And then went out the next morning and put the thing away with an early limit and then just kept culling much. But there was a lot of tension for everybody that was following that race. On day 2, by making the cut, he eliminated Chris Johnston, who ends up finishing 3rd in the AOY race. And then on day 3, by finishing, I don't remember exactly where he finished, but it was 28th or something like that. He eliminated Brandon Lester, who finished 2nd in the race, who won the Pickwick tournament earlier this year. But it was a great race. Brandon made it interesting at the end with a missed cut at Oahe. But, man, that kid is kid, now he's 34 years old almost. He's just one of those guys that uncommon guts, uncommon character, hard worker, last guy back in the campground every day. And I see why he's so good. And yet, just one of the easiest going guys out there.
Well, we'll definitely need to try and get him on and get his thoughts, and see what he has to say about that experience. That I'm sure there was a little bit of emotion going through all that. So
there was, especially with, he and Tiffany had a baby this year. Cora is her name, and she's not quite 3 months old yet. His parents were there for the last two tournaments, his mom and his stepdad. Uncle came in, grandpa came in. They were all camping around him, camping around us. It was fun to be able to be a part of it. The tension that they felt on day two. His cameraman, Kyle Vandiver, he goes by Vandy Hammer. You could see the tension on his face after day two. Cares about his friend. But he's a competitor. He pulled it out.
So let's shift gears to the winner of the tournament, and how that kind of went down, and what he had to say.
Brian Schmidt from Maryland won the tournament. He's a missile baits guy. Really happy for John and those guys. That's 2 missile baits wins this year with John and with Brian. Brian is a threat on a river system. That is just the bottom line. And he's won on that lake, that river in the past, and that section in the past on FLW, wins on the Elite Series, but he came from behind on the final day. He was leading on day one after weigh-in, 18 plus pounds, and then just fought his way through it and had more weight than he thought on the final day. And I'm going to be remiss. There's so much information running through my head right now. I don't exactly remember what it was that he did to win. But I remember it was really unique, and I haven't gone back to touch the video. We've had some camper issues that we've been dealing with. So I guess my short-term memory for the last week has been a little,
life on the road.
Yes, exactly. But he was very surprised by the win. And that's what struck me was he did not expect to have won. He thought Chris Johnston had won. Chris came in a little lighter than Bass Track had him at. And they can check Bass Track once they check in. So they all start looking at where they're at, and it had Chris Johnston higher. So when Schmidt had weighed and he was sitting on that Skeeter hot seat and or the Yeti hot seat this year, when he was sitting on that hot seat and Chris weighed 4 ounces less than him, it was a complete shock. And the interview afterwards reflects some of that. It was really cool to see a guy that was so excited to have done that. And it's his second elite win. It was really, really cool. It was a great little time to be able to talk to him. Good guy from Maryland, works hard. Had been a journeyman for quite a while, and then all of a sudden just kind of hit his stride. And now he's won 3 of them in the last 3 or 4 years with an FLW and 2 elites. So it's a big deal for someone like that.
Well, let's roll that clip as well and see. We'll see how surprised he is.
Brian Schmidt, big papa today, brother. You didn't expect that at all, did you?
I didn't. I knew I gave myself a chance, but I said, Chris, his weights, like I looked on Bass Track when I got in, I'm like, he's been low all week, below his Bass Track. I'm like, all he needs is like 14 and a half. He's got me. And just still in awe. Can't believe it, man.
What was key this week? What kind of stuff were you fishing and what pattern were you using?
It was all grass related, and it was edges or depressions within the grass bed.
Technique, you said Carolina rig, but give me the details of it.
The last 2 days, everything I weighed in was on a Carolina rig, minus 1 topwater fish. The deal with that, the weight would get down in the grass and the bait would stay just above the eelgrass until it broke through. It got me a few extra bites. If you just got down deep in that eelgrass, you didn't get bit. Fitzgerald 7.3 heavy rod, Fitzgerald stunner reel, 17-pound P-line, 1/2 ounce weight, you know, a 3/0 959 Hayabusa hook. So that hook has an NRB coating, a slick coating. And a lot of these fish would, is it grass, is it a fish? And you didn't get to set the hook hard because it would catch you off guard. Caught a lot of fish because of that hook. Missile Baits Baby Destroyer and Green Pumpkin Flash. Could not get bit on nothing but that. Tried other colors. Don't know why that was the color they liked. But you know, earlier the first day when I had 1710, I caught on the Missile Baits Magic Worm drop shotting on the blueback secret. Every big fish I caught was on the drop shot the first day, grass related, but it changed into what we had this, you know, Carolina rig.
Was that a weather deal after all the rains, watercolor maybe?
100%.
Yeah.
A little more current, a little more stain, and it seemed like their strike zone shrunk a little bit. The current I was fishing, you had to get something down there quick.
You're known as a closer. You've closed a lot of tournaments out, home, other tours. Now you're here, second win. What is it about you in these moments that you're able to just kind of finish it off?
I don't understand it. It seems like if I have a shot going in the final day, it's gone well a couple times. I don't have the reason behind it. I hope it never stops.
Congratulations, man. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
All right. So I think maybe we need to finish this episode off. You know, lots of great stories through all of this. What's some of the tackle? What's some of the gear? You know, because that's definitely one of the main things we've tried to do with this is pull out bits and pieces and you know, things that we can pull back to the loft and to getting out in our area. You know, you mentioned the Carolina rig. It's kind of one of those, hey, look, old faithfuls, you know, sometimes they are old faithfuls for a reason. So what other stuff did you kind of see that might apply to us or help us out?
It was at La Crosse, a frog was a big deal. A lot of guys throwing frogs in the grass. There's a lot of little backwater sloughs and things like that there and there. So a frog was a big deal. The one takeaway I'd say on frog fishing is if you don't connect with the fish, if you stick them and you roll them and they come off, you know, that fish is probably not going to bite again. But if you do get a frog bite and it misses it, give it a chance again in a little while, because a lot of times it'll do it. It'll go. We even saw some guys that got blow-ups in particular areas during that tournament that went back the next day and managed to catch that fish. So those fish that are in those mats a lot of times, and, you know, on Neely Henry, you're talking Coosa River grass. Gunnersville is going to be a big deal with the frogs here. It's kind of already started a little bit, but it'll really get going. Give them a chance. Give them a second chance. If you had a blow up and you know where it is, put a mental mark in your mind or a little waypoint, whatever, a temporary waypoint on your Jeep, on your screen there, and give it a shot, because there's something there that's holding that fish. And a lot of times they'll hold and they're looking up, they're looking to eat. So on the frogfish deal, if you don't roll them, give them another look, because a lot of times they'll bite again. And then ultimately, I think the big thing this last stretch is keep fighting. You know, fish are not always easy to figure out. I mean, we saw it in the Angler of the Year chase. We saw it in the final day of the Elite Series. There's a lot of drama going here, too, with the Bass Pro Tour. Who's going to be in? Who's going to be out? They're going to qualify for their red crest. The bottom line is, you know, we get to see all of the stats show up on these screens when we're watching from afar. But the truth of the matter is nothing matters till it's final. And in everything that we fish, nothing matters till it hits the scales. And that last cast can make a difference. And we've seen it happen too many times now.
Well,
so just keep fighting.
Well, Dan, enjoy the last tournament of this big trip. Hope all the RV travel issues get taken care of, but you know, I guess that's life. That's part of owning fun gear and getting out there and using it. Hope you guys have had some fun times. We're certainly anxious to have you back here and back home. and anxious to see what your new Falcon's going to be looking like. So
yeah, looking forward to that too. We are looking forward. I should say this: we're looking forward to being at home. We're not looking forward necessarily to being at the house because we don't know what the girls have done.
gotcha.
With the house. We love them, but we might just take permanent residence in the back of Bucks Island in our camper and just let the girls out.
With that, folks that have been, if you've made it this far, then you probably are a praying person, and say a little prayer for DanO and Christina. But guys, thanks for tuning in again. Sorry, we've gotten a little behind on this stuff, but definitely want to keep going. Love your feedback as we, I guess end most of the seasons and start getting in the mindset, both at the dealership, all sorts of stuff going on as we transition into what we kind of consider the off season. Although for a lot of anglers, it's about to get back on the on season, getting out there and with a lot of the boat traffic getting off the water and the fish getting back out there and biting. But for us, there's a lot of stuff to figure out as we prepare for next year. But Dan, be safe. We'll catch you on the next one. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. We will talk to you later. Bye.